One of the other developing stories, like I mentioned, is the Court of Appeal is hearing this morning an appeal by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission seeking to overturn a decision by the High Court declaring presidential results announced at the constituency level as final. So we want now to cross over back to the Court of Appeal and just listen to what is happening there. A few moments ago, Paul Nyamodi, who's a lawyer representing IEBC, was making his submissions. Let's continue listening in for a few minutes.
Member of the National Assembly and member of the County Assembly. My Lord, it is our submission that returning officers are appointed to supervise specific elections. The Elections Act has been amended by Parliament, and the role of the constituency returning officer is now set out clearly in Section 39(1)(a) of the amended Elections Act. 39(1) capital A, big A. And briefly, it says the following, my Lord, that, and this is determination and declaration of election results. That is the heading of Section 39. 39(1)(a) now says, the Commission shall appoint constituency returning officers to be responsible for 1. Tallying, announcing, and declaration in the prescribed form of the final results from each polling station in a constituency for the election of member of National Assembly and members of County Assembly. Later on in my submissions, I will submit on what the meaning of a declaration is. Secondly, Roman 2, the Commission shall appoint constituency returning officers to be responsible for Roman 2, collating and announcing the results from each polling station in the constituency in respect of the election of the President, County Governor, Senator, and County Women's Representative to the National Assembly. I urge your Lordships to note the provisions of Section 39(1)(a) Roman 2 in respect to the role of the constituency returning officer in a presidential election. My Lords, to conclude this thematic area, I have made the submission that Article 86 or Articles 86 and Articles 138(2) were not the correct articles by which the constitutionality of Section 39(2) and 3 should have been determined.
All right, so that's Paul Nyamodi, lawyer representing IEBC, making his submission. And we want to delve deeper into this issue. Joining me in studio right now is Nelson Havi. He is a lawyer. Thank you very much for joining us. All right, good morning. So a lot has been said, and I'm just here looking at the submissions by the IEBC. They faulted the High Court's ruling on 23 grounds. 23 things they're saying that, the High Court erred in. So what really is the issue? Is the issue the announcing and declaration, those two words? And Paul Nyamodi has just mentioned that, he's expecting to hear the differences between this. From where you sit, what really is the issue? Nelson?
Well, the entire appeal by the IEBC can be condensed into 3 main points. Mm-hmm. The first point will be whether there is a difference between announcing and declaring results at the constituency level. Mm-hmm. Then the second point will be whether the results declared at the constituency level, insofar as they relate to the election of the president, are final or subject to verification and confirmation. Mm-hmm. And then thirdly will be whether the election of the president is conducted in the constituency 290 constituents, mm-hmm. or whether the entire election is conducted in one constituency, which is the Kenya Republic, being one presided over by the chairman of the IEBC. Mm-hmm. Now, we may not at this point in time second guess the outcome of the Court of Appeal, but we may be able to analyze on the basis of previous decisions and the facts surrounding the filing of this case. What are the issues to be reviewed in this appeal? Now, the starting point will be the Constitution itself. Now, the Constitution demarcates the foundation upon which the election is to be conducted and tabulated as the constituency. And then, insofar as the election of the president is concerned, where there are two or more candidates, then an election in respect to the president must be conducted in each and every of the 290 constituencies.
Right.
Now, the problem that came before the High Court for determination related to a section of the Election Act and two regulations within the regulations that are made within the Elections Act. Now, the Elections Act provided that the results declared at the constituency level by the returning officer are provisional, and they are therefore subject to verification and confirmation at the final tally by the chairman of the IEBC. And then the regulations also provided that whereas the returning officer has the final say on the vote cast at the constituency level, the returning officer still does not have the final say on the authenticity of those results, and they remain provisional until after declared by the chairman of the IEBC. And now what the High Court did was to declare parts of the sections of the Election Act, being Section 39, and those two regulations to be unconstitutional. And the reason as to why the declaration of unconstitutionality was made was because the entire framework of the Constitution was designed to ensure that the voting, tallying, and declaration of the results emanates from the lowest level of voting, being the polling station. And then it's tabulated at the constituency level, so that the only function that the chairman of the IEBC does as the principal returning officer is, so to speak, an audit exercise where he tabulates the results from all the 290 constituents and then makes a declaration as the chairman of the IEBC that the winner of the presidential election is A or B, and thereafter notifies us, the Chief Justice, that this is the president-elect.
Interesting. And the Constitution really is quite clear. So is IEBC chasing the win in this? Because doesn't it make sense that the people who are at the lowest level can say, like, okay, so-and-so got 2 votes. And then now, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Well, it makes perfect sense, but we need to understand it from the perspective in which this matter is being argued. I think IEBC were taken to court by an individual in the High Court. Now, the High Court has made a determination that IEBC is not comfortable with. That explains the reason as to why IEBC went to the Court of Appeal, rightfully so, because it has a right of appeal. But it must be understood, insofar as it relates to the election of the president, there's never been any final determination as to finality of the election declared at the constituency level. Now, there have been 2 decisions, one related to the election of Mathare. This is Steve Kariuki versus Mike Wanjohi, in which the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court made a definitive finding that for a fact, the declaration made by the returning officer at the constituent level is final, it cannot be altered. And then the Shabal versus IEBC case, also in respect of a governor, a similar determination was made. Now, the manner in which cases are decided is to decide cases of similar facts relating to similar issues in a similar manner. So bearing in mind the pattern created in those 2 previous decisions by the Supreme Court, there is a preferred argument on the part of the individuals who first went to the High Court that if you apply those 2 decisions and if you bear in mind the general structure of the Constitution, that there has to be finality at the lowest level, then the probable outcome that must prevail in this matter, that there has to be finality. Then on the other side, IEBC has also a very noble argument. It claims that the returning officer for the purposes of the presidential election cannot be the constituency returning officer. It can only be the principal returning officer, who is the chairman of the IEBC. And that argument also has merit. And that's the issue that now the Court of Appeal will have to determine.
Interesting. So IEBC's argument in this, and of course there's also what you had mentioned to do with the announcement and declaration. IBC basically wants to be the people to handle, these results with finality at whatever stage. But then the question is, these returning officers still work for the IBC. They are not, a different institution that are coming in to, announce these results. They're not different from IEBC, or they're just saying it has to be the chair of the commission?
Yeah, now, the IBC's position is that it's only the chair of the commission that is the returning officer for the presidential election. But there is a fallacy in that argument. Reason being, if you look at the constitution, it says the IBC shall conduct the election of the president. And then the IBC, through the chairman, shall also make a declaration and certify to the Chief Justice as to who won the election. Now, if you see the tire of the election process, it starts at the polling station. And then all the candidates vying for those offices have their votes counted at that particular point. And therein now comes the contested issue of what constitutes an announcement and what constitutes a declaration. Now, the history that underlies this issue is one that needs to be considered. If you remember in 2007, towards the end, when there was a contest as to the manner in which the election results were streaming in, Martha Karua and Professor Nyang were very vocal, representing both sides. And you remember Professor Nyang demanding that we need a recount, and the IBC chairman told him then, we can't do a recount at this particular level. A recount can only be done at the polling station. And that explains the reason as to why the Kriegler report and the various constitutional commissions that succeeded it eventually agreed that the place where the announcement has to be made has to be at the lowest level. Now, the announcement basically connotes a public statement that, look, candidate A has obtained, let's say, 300 votes, candidate B has obtained 400 votes, and this has to be done publicly. So the announcement is the public statement to those who are witnessing the count, that this is how it's going. Now, it has also to be differentiated with what a declaration constitutes. A declaration rests with the certificate the returning officer now gives. Now, for the presidential election, the declaration ends at the level where the chairman of the IBC gives a notification to the Chief Justice. But it began at the polling station where the presiding officer certified on account of a Form 34 that this is the candidate who has gotten these votes and also these votes. And then at the constituency level, it's certified in terms of Form number 37. Now, what the IBC does at the final tally is to pick the individual Form 37 from all the 290 constituents, just tabulate them cumulatively and give a result. And that has been the intention of the Constitution.
Right.
So to that extent, IBC may have a bit of a problem explaining that the High Court failed to differentiate between announce and declare. I think those two terms have well been set out in the two decisions by the Supreme Court. There is no doubt as to what constitutes an announcement or what constitutes a declaration.
So, Havi, I just want you to break it down for us. If, this goes the IEBC way, what is going to be the process like? Fine, the people vote at 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. You have the results from a polling station. From that point, what is it that IEBC wants? That these results are transmitted silently, or, they're announced, but we know that they're not the final results, that something might just change? Or how are they going to handle it?
IEBC wants to do that which the late Samuel Kivitu talked about in 2007. You remember Kivitu complained that here I am at the tallying center at KICC, but I do not know what the returning officer from Tiati or Tarakaniti is doing because I haven't heard from him or her for the last 3 days. But in an ideal situation, as espoused by the people who went to the High Court, is the moment you leave a polling station, the moment you leave the constituency returning officer's desk, then you have your own Form 37. And you need not go to the National Tally Center and engage in an argument. But what the IEBC seeks to achieve is to have a system where they can verify, confirm, alter, and change what is contained either in Form 34 or 37. So to speak, they have the power to interfere with what the presiding officer has done or what the returning officer has done. That in a nutshell, represents the scenario
of what IBC is basically pushing for.
Yes.
Interesting. So coming back now to the people who raised the issue, the minor case of this world, what problem did they see in the first place, such that they thought it's best to have this result announced at the lowest point, which of course is what also the Constitution, emphasizes upon.
What could have informed the desire by Maina Kiai and his group to go to court, first of all, are the events that transpired in 2007, which we have now elaborated.
Right.
And then come to 2013, again, you saw a contest that eventually went to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And the Supreme Court failed to provide an opportunity to determine this issue at that point in time. And it became quite clear that the results that were declared at the constituency level were not the ones that were finally tallied and tabulated by the principal returning officer, who is the chairman of the IEBC. And we could see on the streaming screen of IEBC results being projected and being read in clusters. Yeah. Now, that is the problem that Kiai and his group needed to prevent. That is number two. Number three, towards the end of last year, there were several amendments to the election law, which, so to speak, prevented the electronic transmission of results, with the result that there had to be a manual system of either identifying the voter and voting and also transmitting the results. And then therein lies the problem of possible manipulation, or so to speak, cooking, as Samuel Kuvitu will have said.
Yeah.
Now, these are the things that Maina Kiai and his group sought to remedy by this litigation. They needed to have a system that conforms with the requirements of the Constitution. It must be simple, it must be accurate, it must be verifiable, and it must be transparent. And then look at the term transparent. You need to look at it with a looking glass from this point all the way down. If you're looking at the results certified by the chairman of the IBC, they need to have a relationship with the levels that go immediately below it, all the way to the polling
stations.
The polling station.
Right.
Now, if you look at it from that point of view, you understand why all major political parties now say we need to have our own parallel tallying center.
Yeah.
Because the only way in which you can have your own parallel tallying center is if you have the parents' declaration, being the Form 34 and being the Form 37. And I think by yesterday, there was a consensus. Both Jubilee and NASA will have their own parallel centers.
Yeah, centers
and
to do that.
To a large extent, there is no way in which you can conduct your own parallel tally unless you have the basic documents which have the finality of announcement.
From that level.
From that level.
All right, Havi, very quickly as we wind up, what possible outcomes then are we expecting? I know when we started, you said it's very hard to know, how this will go, but possible outcomes.
We have the two best legal minds in Kenya in court right now. We have James Orengo, so to speak, representing NASA, and the Attorney General, Professor Githu Muigai, the government's position. But I think a wholesome review of the Constitution, bearing in mind the several issues we have interrogated, which informed the necessity to have a declaration being made at the constituency level, the probable outcome would be to maintain the decision of the High Court as it is. And in the event that that is not the case, then it's likely whoever is dissatisfied, most likely Maina Kiai or the NASA brigade, they will go to the Supreme Court. So it is least likely that this matter will end up in the Court of Appeal. And most likely also, in the event that the Court of Appeal rules against the IBC, it is my expectation that the IBC will want this matter determined with finality by the Supreme Court.
Wow.
And I think either way, whoever wants to take it to the Supreme Court, it's better that the issue be handled with finality so that by 8th of August, there is no doubt as to the manner in which the election should be conducted.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Nelson Havi, for your insights. Very interesting conversation. He is a lawyer talking to us about what is happening currently at the Court of Appeal. IBC is seeking that the High Court ruling made about who's going to have the finality with the announcement of or declaring of presidential results at constituency level as final. Who is that person going to be? Is it the IBC? Is it the returning officers? That's a question really that the Court of Appeal is going to be handling in the next couple of days. All right, so we'll take a break right now and we'll be coming back to start our second hour of the show. Don't go away. News Center continues shortly.